Happy today. I am William Brown from IamWilliamBrown.com. This is Disconnect to Connect One-Word Conversations. One-Word Conversations is a self-discovery, relationship-building conversation designed to invite you to look at our language and how one word can cause connection or disconnection. And the more that we're willing to have a conversation with that word, the more that we can learn more about ourselves, each other, and strengthen our relationships. One Word Conversation is brought to you by IamWilliamBrown.com, a place to help you be yourself and live your life. One way that I spotlight what's available in the IamWilliamBrown.com store is the U-cards. U-cards are intention setting cards. They're also a game, and they're just fun. So I invite you to go to IamWilliamBrown.com/store to get your U-cards today. The cards that I picked for this conversation is I am unique, you are seen, and there is no one youer than you. This is the moment where I invite you to like, share, comment, ask questions, subscribe, do all those things. Let me know that these conversations have some value to you, and you can be a part of this conversation as well. Introduce today's word. Today's word is responsibility. Responsibility shows up in a lot of different ways. There's a lot of things happening, I guess, in our world, in our society, within our relationships, in our work, where responsibility plays a part. And so I get an opportunity to unpack this with a good friend. It's like sometimes it is a person where you want to give all the credit or all the blame, right? Right. So, but it's my first guest, and this is his third time up here, and he comes around anytime I go over the century mark. He's somewhere to be around. So, as we move into our third 100, right? We're going to have my friend Manuel come in and join me. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good evening. Good morning, wherever you are.
Wherever you are in the world. This is a global conversation, and sometimes I forget that. Even though it's morning for me, it's not morning for you. So this is the moment where I invite my guests to introduce themselves, however it feels comfortable to them.
Yeah, thanks for having me again. I'm Manuel Shipwood. I work as, if you like, labels, because from William that you're not your labels.
Right.
I work as a consultant, coach, spiritual teacher, whatever you want to call it, and help people to integrate more meaning and purpose and compassion and kindness into their work and life.
Oh, wonderful. So it's like, I think there are some more labels that showed up there, or maybe I'm missing some, right?
More and more every time I come on here. It's like author, speaker,
they're just picking them up. They're just everywhere for you. So the question of today is responsibility. How does responsibility land for you?
Yeah. Beautiful word. We talked about that before, and I think in times like these, the idea comes up, and that was actually a conversation I had today as well with a friend of mine, that the motivation to stay in what we're currently in, whatever you want to call it, and whatever circle or system you want to focus on, it's all kind of systems, whether it's your inner circle of friends, whether it's your family or your company or your country or whatever it is. Right. Some people feel some urgent idea of escaping somewhere.
Right. Right.
And I quite know some people who are doing that, or who are very lucky in a way to live on an island and are stuck there because of some quarantine rules, and they're happy about that. And some other people who say, I moved to wherever because they have the idea that it's better over there.
Right.
And I retreat from everything that affects me currently in terms of rules I have to follow, every kind of quarantine rules or hygiene rules or whatever, and all the the unpleasant effects in terms of businesses going down and economies going down and whatnot. So, and we came to the point where I said, well, escaping is maybe not such a responsible thing to do. And we had the discussion about whether you have a responsibility or not if you're not in that system anymore. Let's say you emigrate from the country, and do you have still a responsibility towards the country? And then again, we saw that this is just, this is just what we're seeing. Okay, it's a country. Now it's a country. Now you're in another country. Now you have a responsibility over there.
Right.
And then again, you're always part of humanity. And you're always part of, if you're still on this planet, you have some responsibility for this planet and all the living beings living on that. At least that's my opinion.
Right.
And so the idea came up of, hey, what is responsibility even? Are we responsible? Is it something you can take consciously?
Right.
Or do you have it all the time? So what is it? And what is, I talked about it a lot.
Right.
Okay. So, but that's a question coming up over and over again. And I think it's very important that we talk over and over again about what responsibility is and what not.
It's really fascinating for me because I'm having this like internal battle, and it's like, because there is this, it resonates with me that because I'm a human being, I have a responsibility to other human beings. There's a part of that. I'm in this country. I'm in this this family and all of that. There's responsibilities within there. The internal fight is, that's all good and dandy, but I first need to be responsible to myself. And it's like, if that's out of order, I have no real access to responsibility of others, right? So it feels like that if I lose sight of, so I totally get, don't just run away from it, because there's a lot of there's reports and there's a lot of stories of that. There's a lot of people in different countries that are not handling the current times well, right? So alcoholism is up, smoking is up, domestic violence. There is a lot of really, I guess, terrible things that are happening because people are not coping well, or not taking responsibility for what's going on in their life, and it's like that escape. So if I can't escape, I'll find a way to kind of leave this by drugs and alcohol or something, all that other kind of stuff. But how you can still be responsible for yourself when the responsibilities seem too overwhelming is a conversation I don't think we're having collectively. We kind of feel, we say things like we're all in this together, but there's a reality is that, we're all in this, but it's not together.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's like, so how can I be responsible? How can I take responsibility when the reality is we're not all in this together? There is really there is this individual way of how this occurs, and that I have to like reconcile so I can be there for others.
Right. I think just about one thing you just said. I think that's very important to me, to my perspective, is that to just wanted to put it out there that people who are not able to cope with what's going on and what they're experiencing in the most healthy way we can think of,
Right.
For me, doesn't mean they don't take responsibility. For me, it means maybe they are not able to do that. And especially when we talk about people who show addictive behavior, or who show severe anxiety coming up, or violence going up. And obviously, it is our responsibility as a human being to become aware of that, become aware of my own behavior, become aware of other people's behavior, helping where I can, where help is wanted and needed, and becoming aware of my own behavior, and maybe optimizing that in a way that it doesn't cause so much suffering anymore. But then again, I think it's important that we see people unjudgingly, where they are and with the abilities they have, because not everybody is able to cope with the same situation in the same way. And there are people who are reflecting upon that, and who are, let's say, intelligent enough and conscious enough to see the big picture. And there are some people who are not, and there are some people who made experiences in their life that caused them to react in a different way, maybe in an unwholesome, unhealthy way. And right. So that's I think one important thing to say. And I love what you say about we're in this but not together, because that's really what we see for ages. And we see it feels for me, it looks like we're seeing that in a pattern that gets closer and closer. It gets more often in the last few decades. So I mentioned in another talk we had, I was that's where we met, in California when Trump was elected. And I could see how it tears people apart, like families were polarized and separated in a way, because they started, for the first time in their life, they started talking about their values and what is important to them, and about obviously about their political orientation in that context. And we see the same thing now, where we have a global issue that is as polarizing as any. And I don't talk about Trump or Biden here. I talk about Corona, obviously, but Trump or Biden is the same thing. And we have other topics coming up in the future that will be extremely polarizing, and will cause us, or put us in a situation where we want to reflect upon our own value system and our priorities and our standpoint, and discuss that. The problem is just, and that makes us not together, we don't discuss most of the time. We say we are right and you're wrong, and that's my side and that's your side, and if you're not on my side, there should be a barrier between us, and we should be apart from, far away as possible. And I think that's a very, very unhealthy and unwholesome perspective and position to be in. I think what we really need is coming back to responsibility is having a conversation about our different views,
right?
Because that is the only thing that can bring us peace.
Right. I think the one thing, and I really appreciate that. The one thing that I really got from your sharing right there is when our values come up, right? It's like most of the times, well, I'm thinking for myself right now. Most of the times, people don't know my values until something goes down, right? Until like I'm like pissed off at something, or you've kind of bumped up against them or something like that. But it's not something that and for the most part, I share, right? And so if our values are only shared when they're violated, you know, how can we really communicate on a level that will make a difference for each other? If we're not living our values and people are able to see our values and just kind of, be out there, then that's when the conversation can happen. But if the only time you hear that this is what's most important, this is the most important thing to me now because this happened, then it feels like I'm not responsible. Now, all gloves are off. This is what I'm going to do, right? Type of thing. There is this. I've coined a term for myself. I haven't kind of put this on other people, but I don't want to act as if. I don't want to act as if everything is fine, when I know that it's not fine. I don't want to act as if that I'm not happy, and say and not say that I'm unhappy about a situation. Do you understand? And I think when it talks about communication and taking responsibility, the more that we stay present to our lives, our values, what's important, then we can speak to that, and then we can take responsibility. We can have our ability to respond to things, because it's not just responding. So now I'm trying to get this together. It's not just responding because something is bad or something is wrong, but there is a response to life.
To life. Yeah. Totally get what you mean.
Right.
It's a response to the now.
Right.
So responsibility. I always say it's a package of two things, and you can't have one without the other. If you want freedom, you get responsibility to fill this freedom, as in the same bundle, in the same package. And if you want more responsibility, then what you need is also the freedom to act upon that responsibility and to develop it in a way.
Right.
And it's always as you said, responsibility is the ability to respond to what is currently, to the situation, to what is currently happening. And I think it's, I mean, we talked about that. It's like you're always responding in a way. Even sitting there and doing nothing is a response, and it's always a decision you make unconsciously, maybe. But I think it's, and I think we talked about consciousness in our first talk. Usually, people who are talking to me are talking about consciousness in the first talk. But
so consciousness comes up,
why? So. Making that decision consciously and responding consciously and intentionally, saying, okay, this is a conscious decision to respond in that way. I think that is the important part to see and the decision to make.
Right. Yeah. Now it's taken me back to what you said about escaping, having these thoughts of escaping. is that a conscious decision to escape? Right?
I think it's a conscious decision to escape. I think, well, the question that was arising in this discussion was, do we have? We talked about, okay, we have a responsibility towards ourselves,
right?
Obviously, but what kind of responsibility do we have when it comes to others, to the system we live in, the society we live in,
right?
Whatever that system or society might be? And I think that's the important part. I don't say retreating isn't a good thing. I think a retreat in what kind of way, if it's really a retreat in nowadays Western terms, and in terms of being on vacation for 2 weeks in some ashram, yes, do that. Or if it's retreat, just being with yourself in your room. And I think all the lockdowns and quarantines nowadays are a very good opportunity to do that. And that's really a recommendation to everyone fighting against the idea of being in a lockdown. It's obviously, I prefer a lively interaction and a natural closeness with other people.
Right.
But if this is what we're in, it's a great opportunity to learn to accept it and to make the best out of it.
Right.
And in our first lockdown here, I used it as an opportunity to have a retreat for 2 weeks, just being with myself, meditating every day and doing nothing.
Right.
So this is obviously a good thing, but I think it's even more worth it if you utilize what you get out of the retreat in terms of energy, or whatever you want to call it, insight, or whatever comes out of it, in a piece, and take that back to where you were before, and take that back into the system other people want to escape from, to make the system better and eventually not having to escape from anymore.
Yeah, I'm like getting very caught up on, escape. The difference between retreat and escape. There is, and the responsibility, because I totally get it. I totally, I take retreats, and I know there is some, live to fight another day, all those type of things, but I always really try to not be in a mindset of an escape mindset, is because whatever I'm running from, I believe in some cases I'm taking with me, right? Even
it shows up in a different form,
right? Yeah. It just shows up another way. So if I go somewhere, it is not away from something. And so so yeah, the responsibility in that, I'm just, like I said, I definitely believe that we have a responsibility for each other. But I think that responsibility shows up differently than the responsibility that we have for ourselves. And I think that is, individually crafted, right? So I can't tell you how to be responsible for yourself, right? I can't tell you how to be responsible for people that are around you. That is something that you will get an awareness of, and kind of to do that.
And that's what it's all about. I loved actually the cards you drew today. What was it? I'm unique. You are seen.
Right.
And there's nothing.
There's no one newer than
you. Right. Mm-hmm. And I mean, how are the odds that these three cards are combined? But that is exactly the responsibility you have to the world, being you. Right? And that is, when I talk about the escapists or the escaping idea, one role that is living this escaping idea is usually the classical escapist who's going to some commune and trying to evade the system, whatever the system is, right? That is something I hear a lot from, let's say, alternative people or people who are reflecting upon what's going on in general. And that's a beautiful thing. I think that's very important, and people should do that. But then again, they want to escape from a system, and then they end up in a system because they are a system, and they need, suddenly they need rules again. They were escaping from, so they were escaping from the idea of rules, and then they're living together with 10 other people and have to decide who takes down the trash, right? So. Or I don't know who does the dishes and so on. So and then they are in a smart system. They had to create themselves, and they don't like each other anymore, and they don't like themselves anymore because they created the same thing they were escaping from. So so much about taking what I'm escaping from with me. Right. So absolutely right, and I think the responsibility we have there is that uniqueness that showed up on your card will be combined with you are seen perfect, because you are here for a reason, right? So as soon as you're not taking responsibility for showing up as you really are, and spreading your uniqueness, so to say, and allowing yourself to be seen with that uniqueness, you're not taking responsibility in a way. You're like escaping from what you are, and from your purpose being here.
I totally get that. A couple months ago, I wrote down, I posted on social media that we can't be seen if we're not ourselves. If we're not our unique self, it's impossible to be seen. And at the time I was like, well, people, they see something, but it's not us, right?
It's a mask, it's a role, it's whatever it is. Yeah,
it's not us. And so the only way that we can truly be seen is to be our unique self. And I think that's the responsibility to ourselves, is to show up as ourselves. And I mean, but look, that's how it's showing up for me. I don't know how it's, because that's when I say, it's self-discovery is, internal work. It's all about, the internal work that we do. And there has been many times where I go, oh, this is hard work. Why do I have to, I'm not going to clock in today. Right. I'm just going to show up as, pick a label that I'm okay with, and I'll just, I'll just do that. Right. And just kind of to go from there. So,
and people around you making that easy for you, that's the hardest part. They make it easy for you because they know your role or your mask or the puppet you're showing them, and they're not really, sometimes they don't even want to see you, because you as a person are, how to say, your authenticity or your real you is developing all the time, and it's never done, and it's showing up more and more by the day, but people are used to that shell you showed them yesterday, and then they say things like, oh, you changed, or this is so not you, and the only right response, in my opinion, would be, oh, that's even more me. But you don't know me yet, because my me now is not the me yesterday. You know? You just know my me from 3 days ago, and that is definitely not me anymore. So.
Wow. Now, is there a responsibility in having that conversation? Because sometimes that conversation can get very tiring, because I've been in conversations like that, because people will say, oh, you've changed and you're trying to be something that you're not. It's like, dude, I feel more myself than I've ever done before. But you won't let that other, lovely person
whatever.
go, right? Right. It's like, so I am not
I
running
think
from
there
that at
is a
all.
responsibility, if we really understand responsibility as we both define it, as responsibility,
Right.
and not as an obligation.
Right.
I think that's very important to put out there. Responsibility doesn't mean obligation or duty. It means it's your opportunity, it's your chance to respond to whatever is.
Right.
And I think that is definitely the case with that conversation, because it is the ability to open a perspective for that other person to see things differently. And I think there's a responsibility in all our sharing we do. And I think it's important to be able to distinguish that from unsolicited advice.
Right. Got it. Right.
Right. I mean, but I think as soon as my sharing of who or what I am and of the experience I had and of the synergetic effect I subtracted from that, in terms of, okay, that's a learning or a benefit I took from that experiences, pleasant or unpleasant, and I want to share that with the world. Absolutely. I mean, that's why you're doing this show, right? And that's why you have all these wonderful people in here.
Yeah, it's just the ability to just, I guess, talk through things, like you were saying. It's like we're losing our ability to just kind of just talk through things and say that, hey, this is who I am today. This is who I am. This is what I aspire to be. This is who I, all those type of things. That it's, I don't know if you've heard this thing, is that, once you reach a certain age, you're, by law, you're like an adult, right? And so now it's like all of the adult things that you're supposed to do. This is what adult. This is how they act. This is how they respond. This is how they answer. This is all those things, and it's like, dude, that's not, that's not me. And so we act as if, because we're an adult, I am only going to say so much, because adults don't really explain. Adults explain things to kids. Adults don't explain things to other adults, because adults just get it because they're adults, right?
That's an interesting belief. Okay.
And so the reason why there have been times where, when people say, don't talk to me like I'm a kid, it's like, dude, I'm trying to make sure that you get this, right? I'm trying to make sure you understand. But there is this, like I said, I don't know if this is a states thing, but there is this belief that we don't have to use as many words. We don't have to, it's like we've gotten this kind of understanding of the world, or if you're a certain age, you should. I mean, most of the disappointments that I have with people, I don't say in the past, but it's like sometimes it kind of shows up and I kind of live beyond it, is that when you think a certain person at a certain age should show up a certain way.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, yeah, you should be a little more responsible than that. Right. It's just like,
oh, I got the connection. Okay.
Right. And then it's like, no, right. It's like, if they don't take responsibility, it doesn't matter what age they are. But we kind of, as I said before, we act as if, because I'm a certain age, because I've done this, because whatever, there's a level of responsibility that just like magically comes with that.
I think so. I totally get the idea, and that's definitely not only a states thing. Living the pattern of what an adult looks like, or how he behaves, or whatever, and I think that's very important that we understand. I think there's also some kind of benefit or treasure hiding in there. I don't think that it's all bad. that is I think there's a helpful part in it.
Right.
But at the same time, it's very likely that you just try to fulfill any pattern and to live a pattern of someone else from 100 years ago or hundreds of years ago, and we're just repeating these patterns instead of listening to our inner voice and to our intuition and living our true self. Absolutely. I think the whole, and we need another hour or month for that to explore the idea of maturity in a way,
right?
Because I think the idea of maturing in a specific way regarding specific aspects of yourself and regarding specific roles you have when you get older is, I think, an important part of our life that is neglected anyway, because we don't have this life phase transition rituals anymore, and we don't have the whole "you're a man now" thing anymore, or "you're a woman now." Most of the time, some people, some religions have it in some ways, but it's not the same thing anymore. And where I was getting patterns, being adult, I think it's there's another notion of responsibility that is more like reason and rationality. And sometimes we say things like, you should be more responsible than that. But what we actually mean by that is you should be more reasonable or rational. It's like, no, I shouldn't. So no, I'm taking responsibility by having an my individual response to what I live in. And maybe it's not as reasonable as you think it should be.
I think it should be, right? No, I got it. I really believe, and I'm going to explore this on another show. I think maturity is like connected to responsibility in some way. There is some how responsibility really shows up. There's a maturity within it, right? And so, and just what that means and how that's showing up for us. I think we can talk about this for hours, but because it's probably a lot later where you are than where it is for me.
It's still planning. So.
it's still sunny, right? But is there any last thing? I mean, you've said a lot of things to really embrace here and to kind of look at. Is there any last thing that you want to leave everyone with, around responsibility?
I just maybe just a few words about the last thing you said about maturity and it being more mature and so on. And I think, I don't know, I can't remember who it was. I think it was Osho or someone. Like, he said, there's a responsibility to mature. Because and the meaning maturing in a way of leaving your own shit behind, right? Unlearn all the unhelpful patterns you just accepted unreflectingly. And, that's maturing in that way. Developing being your true self is a kind of maturity, and being a wholesome self to others again, especially when you have your own kids and so on. You want to leave your own patterns you learned behind, and But apart from that, be yourself, put yourself out there, be love, be the change.
Right. Wonderful. Well, thank you very much. I know when you're around and when you show up on the show, I'm in another 100, right? So, this is the third time. So we'll be back when we hit, I guess, the 400 mark. So,
Go for it.
so like I said, I don't know if you take all the credit for this or the blame, right? But I am so honored to have you as a friend, and a fellow human being in this world on this journey. Blessings
for having me. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, responsibility. I love how the cards just lined up. A big part of being responsible is being unique because you're being seen, and there's no one newer than you. And the more that we embrace our uniqueness, the more that we really, I don't want to say take responsibility for showing up, but show up, then responsibility. Then we are responsible for how we relate to each other, the world, our surroundings. And I don't use this term a lot, but it's coming up for me now. The human citizen, right? The more that we really recognize that we have one thing in common, and that is that we're all human beings. So I hope this conversation has brought value to you, not just to your day, but to your life. I invite you to reach out to me at IamWilliamBrown.com for a complimentary coaching session to help you be yourself and live your life. Because the world wants you, the world needs you, and the world is waiting for you. So go be you. Have a great rest of the day, and I'll see you tomorrow on One Word Conversations.